Hello and welcome to day 5 of our challenge, where today we're going to be looking at wheel pose and how to get into it. But before we come into the pose, we do need to warm up our bodies. So we are going to begin in standing, do a sun salutation just to get the blood flowing and the body warmed up a bit, and then we're going to do a few exercises just to open up the parts of the body that we need. So come to standing at the top of your mat, so make sure you can see me in the camera. Feet hips distance, arms down by the sides, roll your shoulders back. Take a big inhale, sigh out through the mouth, and let's begin. So let's inhale, sweep the hands up above the head. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Again, shall we? Inhale, sweep the hands up. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Bend the knees as much as you can so you can plant the fingers. Take your left foot back, lower your left knee. Okay, so we're coming into our low lunge. Now, if you need to come to all fours to get that leg back, then do so. Lengthen up through the chest. Sink those hips as low as possible. And then bring the right knee back to meet the left. Hold it over your hands so you're in half plank. Lower all the way down to your belly. Inhale to cobra, lift that chest. Exhale back down. Let's do that again. Inhale, lift that chest. Exhale down. One more time. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, down. Push back up onto your knees. Tuck your toes. Downward facing dog. Remember, in your down dog, belly to thighs and hips to sky. It doesn't matter if your knees are bent, if your heels are touching the ground. Just really lengthen through that spine. Bend the knees, look towards your hands, take a big step or little steps and come into your forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, bring the hands all the way up, come up to standing, hands above your head. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, bring the hands up. Exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold, plant the hands. This time take the right foot all the way back, lower the right knee. Remember, you can come to all fours. Sink those hips down low. So it's really important that we do warm up the body correctly before jumping into these big poses, because otherwise that's how injuries happen. So sink your hips down low. Remember, long exhales. Left knee comes back to meet the right. Hover over your hands, lower down to the ground. This time bring your arms into a cactus position. Fingertips on the ground. Inhale, lift that chest, straighten the arms. Exhale, back down. Inhale up. Exhale down. Inhale up. Exhale down. Okay, bring the elbows underneath the shoulders. Right arm comes across the body. Left knee bends. See if you can reach behind with your left hand and grab that foot. If you can, bring it as close to your bum as you can. Okay, nice deep quad stretch here. As you're holding this, don't just focus on your foot. Focus on pushing your left hip into the floor. If you can't grab your leg, just actively bring it towards your bum. Long inhales and exhales. Slowly releasing that leg. Other side, left arm comes across, right leg bends up. Maybe you just hold it there. Maybe you can reach behind and grab it. If you can, bring it as close to your bum as you can. and then dig your right hip into the ground. Couple of breaths. Make sure you're breathing. Don't hold your breath in any of these poses. Release that leg. Come back down, hands next to the chest. Push back up onto your knees. Okay, so back to all fours, hips above the knees. Take your arms out as long as you can ahead of you, and then sink your chest down. Now, if you can come pretty low, so low that even with your arms straight, your elbows touch the ground and you can look towards your fingers, I want you to grab some yoga blocks, or if you don't have yoga blocks, you can do this on the edge of a chair. Bring them about shoulder width apart. Place your elbows on the blocks. Hands can be in prayer or interlaced. Lift your hands up and sink your chest down. So it kind of gives you a little bit more space to lower down. Okay, so you can get a little bit of a deeper stretch there. So do whatever you need to. Remember, you can always do this on the edge of a chair as well. Just sink your chest down. Nice deep shoulder stretch here. Breathe into it. It's not going to feel pleasant, but breathe. We need the shoulders nice and open for our wheel pose. And then coming back up. If you've had your blocks, bring them out of the way. Sit back onto your heels. Now, if you struggle sitting on your heels, you can grab pillows, blocks, blankets, place it in between your bum and your heels, and it's going to give you a bit more height, which makes it a little bit easier. Okay, but if you can, just sit back on your heels. Right hand's going to come behind, and again, if the floor seems too far away, grab that block or anything that's lying around that can bring the floor up a little bit closer to you. I always like to come onto my fingertips. And then we're going to lift the hips up. Left hand comes up and over. So really push your hips forward, okay? Not so much up, but forward. Couple of breaths. Make sure you can breathe. On your next exhale, lower the hips. Bring your arms around to the other side. So left arm comes down. Hips go forward. Right arm comes up and over. Really push your hips as far forward as you can. Couple of breaths. Next exhale, lower your hips. Come back around. Now you can stick to that, or if you want to go a step deeper, tuck your toes under. Grab hold of your ankle instead. So right hand on your right ankle. Lift your hips forward, left arm up and over. Couple breaths, squeeze your bum cheeks here. Next exhale, lower the hips, left hand down, hips forward, right arm over. Next exhale, come back down. Okay, let's come to seated. You can stay on your knees or you can come to cross-legged. I'm going to bring the hands up in front. And what I'd like you to do here, make a fist and just circle the wrists. So circle them one way, you might be able to hear mine clicking. Oh, really clicky today. And then circle them the other way. And then hold them up in front of you, and I want you to flick your fingers. So not flicking your wrist, keep your wrist still, but flick your fingers. It's a really great way to strengthen the wrists and the fingers. Now when we come up into our wheel pose, we've got a lot of pressure on our wrists, okay? So we do need to make sure that they're nice and strong. So flick those fingers, keep flicking as fast as you can, as tight as you can, and then as wide as you can. Flick, flick, flick. It's uncomfortable, but just keep going. These are really great for arm balances as well. Okay, and then let your hands rest. You might feel they feel a little bit tingly. And we're going to bring our arms up in front. Bend your left fingertips down to face the ground. Use your right hand, thumb behind your wrist, fingers on top of your hand, just to pull them closer towards the ground. Okay, let's put it closer towards your body, sorry. So you get a nice deep stretch on the top of that wrist. And then fingers face up, grab hold of the fingers, pull that wrist back. Other hand, right hand down, thumb on the back of the wrist, fingers on top. Use your fingers to push down. And again, you might find that one wrist is stronger than the other as well. And that's normally the case, especially if you've ever sprained your wrist or broken your wrist. You'll definitely feel this in whatever side you're injured. Turn the hand back around, fingertips up, pull it back. And release that, give that a bit of a shake. Okay, so we're going to come into our wheel pose. Now, one thing that we're going to do today is take it one step at a time, okay? You might not be able to do wheel pose today. You might not get into this last step. I want you to feel comfortable in every single step you take, okay? So if one step is feeling difficult, don't move on to the next step, okay? Until you've mastered the step before. That is how we prevent injuries, and that is how we are eventually going to get you there, okay? If you just keep trying, part of your brain is going to say, no, you can't do this, and stop you doing it, okay? Until you master the step before. So take your time. I'm going to show you how to do it properly first with no props, and then I'm going to show you afterwards the different ways that you can make this work for you and your body. Okay, so in fact, I'm just gonna, if you've got long hair, tie it up, because you do not want to get halfway and then find that you're pulling on your hair. Very uncomfortable. So I'm going to come down onto our back. Okay, so step one for wheel pose. I always like to kind of shuffle my bum so that my low back is flat on the ground first. Bring your heels quite close towards your bum, okay? The closer they are, the easier it's going to be to end up coming up into wheel pose. So try not to start with your feet too far away. So bring them in about hips distance. Now step one is bridge pose. Okay, so we're going to bend up your hands so your elbows are flat on the ground. Lift your hips up off the ground. Squeeze your bum cheeks. Now tuck your shoulder blades under, and instead of looking directly above you, look slightly back. Okay, that gives your chest a bit more space to open up. You can then bring your hands down to the ground, palms face flat, and just lift your hips up as high as you possibly can. Okay, so this is step one. Step two would be, you can lower back down, bring your hands up by your shoulders. Now this is where it becomes difficult, because you do need the wrist flexibility here to get your hands in the right position to start with. So if you can't do this, that's what you need to work on, and I will show you a way that you can get into wheel if you do have inflexible wrists after. Fingertips facing towards your shoulders, palms flat on the ground, okay? So you're in a really awkward shape. Your heels of your hands might not touch the ground just yet, okay? They can hover, that's fine. Now from here, when we come up, we want to make sure that our elbows aren't coming out to the side and that they're more up towards the ceiling, okay? So you've got this action of pulling your elbows in. Okay, so step one, bridge pose, right? Lift your hips, look back slightly. Step two, from here, now your heels should be able to get onto the ground, okay? If they can't, we know we have to work on some wrist flexibility. From here, you need a little bit of strength, okay? But mostly the reason people can't get up from here is fear, okay? So dig into your hands to take most of the pressure off of your neck, and then come onto the crown of your head, okay? And just rest here for a moment, feel it out. It's going to feel weird. You might feel sensations in your back. Now from here is where your elbows are going to want to come out, okay? So this is step two. Step three is coming up into wheel. But first, make sure your feet are hips distance, knees aren't coming out, elbows aren't coming out. And then you can lift up. Once you're up, you're going to push your chest backwards towards your hands. Okay, kick into your heels to bring your knees further back. It's really difficult to talk like that. And then to come down, you're going to do the same. Lower down onto your head and roll back through your body. So when we're up in our wheel pose, it's much more easier to explain when I'm done the right way. It is really difficult to breathe in wheel pose, okay? So step 4 is breathing, okay? Because it's not just about getting up, you need to be able to stay there. So coming up into wheel pose, step 4 is make sure that you are breathing. When you're upside down, your chest is expanded as much as possible, your back is compressed. It's actually very hard to breathe like that. So make sure once you're up, you really focus on your breath. When you're up, push your chest backwards to the top of your mat, okay? Dig into your heels, because otherwise what happens is your knees go too far forward. I'm going to do this without coming all the way up. And what this does is it puts so much pressure on your toes that you don't have a steady base. As soon as your knees are above your ankles, you've got such more of a solid foundation to hold yourself up, okay? Same with the wrists. If you are too far forward, you're going to be more onto the fingers and not the base of your wrist, okay? So you need to push your chest backwards so that most of your weight can go on the wrists. Okay, so that's how we get up into wheel pose. Couple of different ways that we can do this, okay? First thing, if you struggle with wrists, there's a really easy exercise to do where you are going to need some yoga blocks. If you don't have yoga blocks, you can use anything that's like square like this, as long as it doesn't move. I wouldn't recommend books because they're going to slip. I'm trying to think what else you could use. I would just get some yoga blocks. I'll put up a link in the group of where I got mine, because they are amazing. And what you're going to do is you're going to put them up on the skirting. Okay, so one side goes on the skirting, one side goes on the floor. That makes it nice and solid. Now notice the angle now of my yoga blocks. They're at an angle, right? So my heel doesn't have as far to go. Just move my yoga mat across. Okay, so from here, it's going to be awkward because it's right against the wall. I will try. You're going to place your head in between the blocks. Bring your heels nice and close to your bum. So notice how close my head is here to the wall, by the way. It's nice and close. Fingertips are going to come to the blocks. Now to start with, this is going to be harder, okay? Because your hands are further up, meaning your heels are, it's going to be even harder for them to touch the ground, right? But get them in place. So fingertips are right on the end of your block so that your palm eventually will be nearer the top. Lift your hips up into bridge. And then from here, you might be able to get your hands off your heels down, or maybe even just the knuckles, like underneath the knuckles. That's also fine. To give yourself a little bit of a push to come onto the top of your head. Now, once you're there, it's going to be easier to get your hands on these blocks, okay? Notice your feet, notice your hands, push on up. Okay, it's going to be a lot easier to push on up with your heels, the hands of your heels, in this position, okay? And then push your chest backwards. To come down, bend the elbows, slowly lower onto your head, roll down through the body. Now, because your blocks are at that position, it's really hard for them to fall, okay? So make sure that they are right on the edge of the skirting, and that's going to stop them from slipping, okay? You might notice then it wobbled as I got up. That's because then all my pressure went into the tip, so it rocked forward a little bit. That shouldn't happen when you're going up because you're placing the weight backwards instead. So that's one way to get into wheel. Another way, if you find that when you're upside down, your elbows keep coming apart, you can use a yoga strap. I'm just going to tie this one up just to keep your elbows a little bit closer together, okay? So if you have a double loop one like this, just tie it around. I have got a YouTube video on how to tie a yoga strap, by the way, if anybody needs it. And you want it about shoulder width, okay? So measure your shoulders about there, and then you're going to place it at the base of your elbows, okay? I'm just going to open it slightly wider because my head isn't going to fit through there otherwise. Okay, so So I'll show you how to do it with this one. A little bit awkward, but it's great if you can get up into wheel, but you find that you can't stay there and your elbows keep coming apart, okay? So this one is only for once you can get up into wheel. So again, you're going to bring your feet close. Try not to let your strap slip too much. Hands by your head. Come up into bridge. And then from here to the crown of your head and then lift up. And you'll notice here how the strap is stopping me from splaying out my elbows. Now, what that is also stopping is me being able to push my chest backwards to get that full extension of wheel. But it's a good thing to practice if you do find that your elbows are coming apart, okay? Another thing that you can do with that is exactly what we've just done, but on the knees. So you'll need it a tiny bit wider. Again, this is for when you can come up into wheel. This is to improve your wheel pose. You're gonna place it around your knees instead, okay? So same thing, heels quite close, hands up, bridge pose first, come up onto the crown of your head, and then push up and push backwards, okay? And that is gonna stop your knees from splaying outwards. When you come down from wheel, always take a little rest, okay? Okay, so one more thing for if you are struggling to do any of that, okay? There are still ways around this. The most easiest one is to find something to do wheel over, okay? So I'm just gonna run and grab a couple of props to show you how that's done. Okay, so for this next one, it's gonna be quite awkward, but I've got a little stool. You're gonna bring it to the middle of your mat. Make sure that your mat is quite close to a wall, okay? So you're gonna sit on the edge of it. Make sure your knees go above your ankles. You're gonna lean back, so bring your hands down to the ground. Now, very awkwardly, slide your bum off of the prop so that just your back is on it, okay? And then we're gonna drop our head, bring our hands up over, walk down a wall maybe, and bring your hands down to the ground, okay? So from here, this is where you start, okay? Now notice here, my head is flat on the ground. My hands can come down a bit awkwardly, but they are down. And this is step 2 of our wheel pose, right? Because step 1 is bridge, step 2 is here. When you get here, maybe you find some strength and you can lift up. I actually find it really awkward to lift from this position because my back is too high up to start lifting. But it's a really great position to start with, okay? You can walk yourself back up. And that's kind of like how you would do it if you don't have enough strength yet to get yourself into wheel pose, and get used to that position, right? Get used to your hands being up, get used to your head being on the ground, and then get used to trying to lift your hips up, even though it's gonna feel really awkward. You notice then I couldn't even do that. I couldn't lift my hips up from that position, but I could actively engage my glutes, turn my bum muscles on, and try to lift, okay? Because even that is gonna be gaining strength and flexibility in the front of your body. So just one more time before we finish today. Come on down, and let's try the different positions. Oh, Holly, you're annoying my light. Yeah, let's cover that one. Okay, so step 1, bridge pose. Step 2, get your hands in place. Step 3, crown of your head. Make sure your hand position and leg positions are fine. Step 3, is it we're on now? Lift on up. Step 4, push your chest backwards and try and breathe. Okay, and breathe here. Eventually, maybe you can even straighten the legs, and then to come down onto your head, roll down through the body. Holly, are you actually serious? Holly, come here. What is she like? I know you want attention. I'm trying to teach. So hopefully over these last 5 days, I'm hoping Holly didn't block the whole of my wheel pose then. Over the last 5 days, you've loosened your body, you've strengthened it, you know which part of the body now that we need to work. You know that there's different ways that we can work on this. You know, we can do yin, we can do slow flows, we can do vinyasa. You can also just spend a few minutes warming up your body to get into poses like this, okay? By the way, if you're still with me,
circle out those wrists because you're going to be feeling this afterwards. So this is exactly what we do inside Lakora Live in my membership, my online membership. We go live 3 times a week and we have all the replays in case you can't make it live. But we go over working the different parts of the body. So we do forward folding, back bending, and hip opening, because they are the main 3 movements that you need to gain full body flexibility. So every week we'll do a back bending class. Every week we'll do a forward fold class. Every week we'll do a hip opening class, right? To help you gain flexibility. And then you've got the different options of yin, the slower version, slow flow, which is like moving but holding the poses for a few breaths, and then vinyasa, the kind of quicker, funky sequencing, more fun kind of flow. So with that in mind, the reason that we go live 3 times a week is for consistency, okay? Because you have to stick to these things to see progress, okay? Just doing this challenge, maybe getting somewhere and then stopping isn't going to help your flexibility. Obviously, you need to keep it up at least once a week, which is why we do the 3 different movements once a week in the group. Now, the membership is open. If you would like to continue practicing your flexibility with me, then please feel free to come and join us. If you sign up within the next 5 days, you will also get access to a 14-day backbending challenge. Okay, so it goes a little bit deeper than what we've done this week. We've only had 5 days. So if you would like a 14-day challenge where we go through the different parts of the body, and again, those different style of classes, then feel free to come and join us. I will leave the link in the description below. And if you do have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment and I will get back to you. I'm still around to answer all of your questions for now. If you do struggle with wheel and you would like some feedback, please video yourself and then post it in the group, because that is a great way for me to see what's going on in your body and to help you figure out what you need to do to get your body into it. So thank you so much for joining me. This has been such a fun challenge and I cannot wait to see all of your wheel poses.